there's like three core use cases in Clay that I think are probably worth showing off. So there's an outbound, an inbound, and then like a CRM enrichment one. There is a ton of stuff you can do in Clay as an early stage company to get benefits. So the first one is building TAM lists. You can find companies by the products they use. So if you want to find everyone that uses like Outreach or SalesLoft, you can import them via HG Insights. I wanted to know a complete high level of how their sales team operates. It will give me a full rundown of how much their sales team members are getting paid, how their sales team is structured. No strategy works for a super long time. Everything gets played out. And actually, like, nobody should have the same strategy as another company. Your strategy is completely unique to you, which is why Clay is so powerful, is you can find this niche data and do something very unique to yourself.
Welcome back to the show. Today's guest is the founder of The Kiln, a Clay agency that helps go-to-market teams scale. Everyone, please welcome Patrick Spychalski. Patrick, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thanks for having me. Pumped to be on again. It's been a minute. Glad to be getting back on.
Happy to have you back. And Adam, what are three things the audience is going to learn if they stick around until the end today?
Number one, you're going to get the tactical playbook to turn your stale CRM into a self-updating source of truth using Patrick's favorite Clay use case. Number two, you'll see the exact logic behind why 8 hyper-personalized emails can generate 5 times more demos than a mass-scale outbound engine. And number three, you're going to learn how to build an automated research engine that pre-writes your BDR's copy, allowing them to focus on closing instead of manual prospecting.
Heck yeah. All right. We got a lot to cover. Folks, at the end of the show, what we're going to do, we're going to have a unfuck my cold email segment. So that'll happen in about 35 minutes. What we'll do, we'll start having people drop in their cold email copy into the chat. What I'm going to try to do this week is just like paste them into a document so we can all follow along. And Patrick and the panel here are going to give feedback on that. If you come to the show often, you'll realize there are a lot of patterns and trends between people who are doing this really well and the folks who are not finding as much success, who are asking for feedback. A lot of patterns. So we'll be sure to point those out. And I mean, let's get into it. Patrick, first, before we jump into all of these workflows and automations and filtering and enrichment and all this stuff, can you please tell us what The Kiln is and what you do for go-to-market teams?
Yeah, totally. Again, nice to see everybody here. Patrick Spychalski. I'm co-founder of an agency called The Kiln. We're an agency that builds AI-driven go-to-market systems for large companies. The main tool that we use for most of the stuff that we build is a tool called Clay. I'm sure most of you have heard of Clay at this point. Last time I did this show, I had to, I like essentially maybe half, if not less, of the people had heard of Clay. So it's definitely progressed quite a bit. But yeah, in short, we for large companies, we build automated go-to-market systems to help improve efficiency in sales teams. So, we'll show a few examples of what this looks like. But in short, the goal is to save sales team members time in doing kind of menial, annoying activities and give them better data to act upon when they're doing sales.
Heck yeah. Well, why don't we jump in and talk a little bit about like better data? So usually when I begin working with somebody, one of the first things I do, jump into all their systems, check out what they're using for, kind of what their lead list is, what they're using for lead filtering. And there's usually a lot of noise in there, and the noise makes it really hard to, now you're trying to reach out to 200,000 people, probably 10,000 of them are even a fit, it's just like, it greatly amplifies the difficulty of actually tackling these people. So when you look at most founders' Clay tables, right, or just outbound systems, when you start working with them, what is there like a type of sort of garbage data or trends you see that they're sort of obsessed with that you actually try to strip away and just get more precise on who they're actually targeting?
Yeah, so something that's been really interesting over the past like year or two is that we've kind of slowly been working our way up to like larger and larger companies to work with as an agency. And like I was never really surprised when startups or like kind of early stage companies had like bad data, because of course data providers are expensive and they're probably just throwing it together. It's kind of like move fast and break things mentality. But um, the surprising thing that I've learned recently is that also really big companies have really bad data too. If as a matter of fact, it's actually usually better, many standard deviations worse than that of startups. And it's bad in like a bunch of different ways. And so the first is that it's generally pretty stale, and static. So like a lot of the data that we'll see in a Salesforce for a big enterprise company is just from like a big ZoomInfo import from like 3 years ago, and actually none of it's really up to date anymore. Like no one's at the job that they were at the time, or they've moved, or the company's made a much more money, or maybe they've shut down. So it's just like it's not great data from like a high level. It's also like pretty much inactionable. Like let's say even hypothetically, if everybody in their CRM was still at the job that they were at, like rarely are the emails and phone numbers that they're reaching out to validated. So I think like we get on calls with companies a lot, just in like kind of the prospect phase when they were like looking to potentially work with us. And they kind of jump to all of the really advanced, like we want to find out where like our prospect's mom lives sort of data, and they don't even have like the bare bones down. And so I think a lot of our job is actually just kind of reverting them back to like, please look at your CRM as is. It's probably actually really not that good. And let's fix that first, and then we can kind of go to the fancier stuff. But because like everyone sees like the LinkedIn posts of like, here's how I launch the Apollo missions from a clay table, and like this is the crazy, and then they're like, I want to do that, like that's the crazy. I want to give clay a try. And like I'm glad it gets them into the ecosystem, but it's really not the best like first principles approach to getting better data. So it's usually, actually like the basic stuff that they have wrong.
Yeah, I kind of in that neighborhood. So when you're actually trying to filter down, you got to start to latch on to like really important data points, right? That actually signify your ICP. So if we're talking about lead scoring, a lot of teams are using like company size, industry. A lot of us know that the industry filter is pretty faulty, especially if you're selling into software. It's like especially faulty. Um, so is there like, and maybe this is a Clay sort of enrichment capability. Is there stuff you use in Clay that allow these teams to score leads based on maybe intent or some other like subsegment data that you find better that's maybe let's say non-obvious?
Yeah, so I'll actually show a workflow kind of soon, like on this webinar that demonstrates this. But I think one of the main value props of Clay overall is that you can be pretty flexible with how you action upon data, and also where you source data. So like there's really like Clay doesn't actually themselves have any data that they provide. They use third-party data providers and create this marketplace within the platform. And so you can be pretty sure that from a data quality standpoint, you're going to get the best data possible because you're aggregating just a bunch of these different data providers in a waterfall and finding the source of truth. But like in your case, for example, though, like let's say every data provider classifies industry pretty badly. Like I see this a lot with SaaS. Like rarely is like SaaS a category and like these data providers. Like like even on LinkedIn, it's like it'll have like computer software, and you're like, well, is that SaaS? Like I'm not really sure. But what's great is you can use the AI integrations in Clay and feed data into them from previous integrations in Clay to create these kind of like auto categorizations. So like, let's say, for example, you're targeting kind of like 5 micro niches at a company. You can define what those micro niches are, feed data on each prospect into Clay, and then have it categorize automatically instead of having to kind of like play a guessing game with each one of the leads. So I'd say overall, yeah, you're very flexible with what you can do with this data.
So why don't we jump into workflow land? If we want to talk about maybe like filtering and kind of, we'll start with maybe the filtering and enrichment side of things, and then we can bop around. But I just think that is like I have this philosophy that like 80% of sales and marketing activities are wasted or they're basically like empty calories on people who are never going to buy or out of market or not a fit for one reason or another. And it's just, I don't even want to say laziness. I think it's like loss aversion. Like people are afraid that like, oh, well, if we boil it down to these 3,000 people, but I have 50,000 in my CRM, like there could be other people in that remaining, I forgot what initial number I said, but 45,000 people that could buy. And it's like that is kind of where the people start kind of tripping over themselves a little bit. So yeah, I'm curious if we could jump into like either a filtering, scoring, or enrichment workflow that sort of showcases some of this.
Yeah, totally. And actually, to preface this workflow, I think the point you made there is super important, which is that if you don't kind of niche down your targeting up front, you're kind of just feeding sales reps on your team, or even maybe just yourself if you're the sales rep, like failure before even starting. We were talking to the top sales rep at this like very large public company recently that we've worked with, and it was one of their top sales reps, and we like got in a room and we were interviewing her, and of course their CRM data isn't great right now, and we were like, what are you doing? What makes you so much better than like everybody else at this company? There's like I think like more than 1,000 reps at this company. It's a huge company. And she was like, yeah, well, like the data in our CRM isn't great, and I know that. And so what I do is I just put all of the emails on my target list into a email blast, and I just click go like once a week. And I just rip through these prospects and like that. And I was like, I can't believe what I'm hearing. Cause like everybody on LinkedIn is always like, this is not the right approach. And I actually agree, it is still not the right approach. But like when you have bad data, it's like actually their only choice. Like they don't even want to work on like a hyper targeted message, because they're like, I don't even know if this person's actually a good target. So I might as well just rip to all of them and hope the timing's right. And like that's literally what they were doing, and it worked. It worked well. So I mean, that's all to say, like you should really focus heavily on the quality of your data, because it's kind of selling your reps short if you're not.
Yeah, I would say that, and then like it is so timely or so time consuming and expensive, and requires you to build up much more sophisticated infrastructure and a bigger team and all these other things if you're trying to hit 100,000 people versus 10 or 5 or 2,000 people. Like the world in which you have to, or the way you have to attack it, that is a perfect example, Patrick, because it's like the messiness of the data completely eliminated even like the prospect of them doing more personalized approach. It's like, well, we just can't do it. So like, this is our only option. And like, yeah, it kind of works. But anyway.
Yeah, exactly. All right, great. Yeah, but I'll show a couple workflows to demonstrate this. I created 3 workflows actually just based. I mean, Adam and I like briefly chatted about what this was going to be about. So I was like, okay, I have like, there's like 3 core use cases in Clay that I think are probably worth showing off. So there's an outbound, an inbound, and then like a CRM enrichment one. I think the conversation that's most tied to this is obviously the inbound kind of like lead scoring one, and then we can go to the other 2 as well. So I'll share my screen real quick and we can run through these. So this is the inbound lead scoring one that I wanted to show. And actually, if you want to just DM me on LinkedIn, I'll send you the link to this. We actually built this as a template for people who haven't used Clay but want to do lead scoring. It's because lead scoring is actually like a pretty complicated approach in practice. Like you have to find data, then you have to determine the weight of that data in your lead score, and then you have to like create a lead scoring model that can actually output a final score. And so I wanted to quickly show how this works in Clay, and how you can kind of determine what high propensity accounts look like versus not. And harkening to the earlier point before, this is super important, because if you don't do this, then you or whoever the reps that you're working with don't know what high priority accounts are, and they just won't have the motivation to even send personalized outreach to them. So I think it actually really is important. And almost all of our clients to some extent want this. So hopefully, I'm not sure how many people in this have used Clay. Maybe I should have asked this prior, but I will just operate under the assumption that most people here have heard of it, but are beginners or haven't used it. And so I just wanted to give a quick high level on like what Clay is if you haven't been in a Clay table before. So a Clay table, it looks like a spreadsheet. The only difference is that some of these columns you can take actions in. So like they're not just text or number columns, but you can set up these integration columns and find data, and you can click into the results of these columns. And there's a bunch of information about like a company or a person in the columns. And you can think of Clay from a high level, if nobody's used it, maybe you've heard about it on LinkedIn. You can think of it as a combination between a really good data enrichment tool and then a workflow tool meant for GTM. And I think if you combine those 2 things, it's almost like if ZoomInfo had better data and met Zapier, and Zapier is just meant for go-to-market. Like that's kind of the best way to talk about it. So you can see here it operates in both a data finding and data enrichment capability. So I've imported a bunch of leads that are directly from Clay into my Clay table. And the goal of this table was to score my leads. Like I have whatever, like 100 example companies in here. How do I actually determine whether they're a good fit or not? And you can imagine when anybody goes through a lead scoring process, the first thing they think to themselves is, what data points do I care about that should be in this lead scoring model? And I actually have a general theory that no two lead scoring models should look the same between companies ever. And so I think this kind of like let's say leads to that general idea. So the first thing that you want to do is figure out what data points you're going to score by. And in our case, you can see we have employee count, we have revenue, we have employee headcount for a certain role, and then we have open jobs, we have tech stack, and then we have a custom scoring data. And all of these pieces of data are essentially being put into an overall scoring model that ends right here with this company scoring integration we have in Clay. So the high level with this table, and of course, if you have any questions about it, happy to answer afterwards. But the high level from this table is that we're using Clay to find each one of these pieces of data, and then we're feeding that data into the scoring model. And then you can see we have these formula columns, and you can use these formula columns to change the weight of each piece of data. So like, let's say you wanted to change this to like, I want the score to be 5 if it's above 250 employees and 0 if it's below 250. These columns allow this to be very easy. So we'll go just one by one really quickly. I don't think we need to go super granular here, but first we're enriching the company to find their employee count, which is actually found on their LinkedIn, and Clay is just pulling this company LinkedIn data. Once the LinkedIn data is found, you can see we can output employee count into another column, and then we have a weight column here. So like, how heavily do we want to weight employee count versus the other data points? Same thing with their revenue. So we used an integration in Clay called Claygent. It's an AI agent you can have perform data for you. We said, go find this company's revenue from ZoomInfo. It's cheaper than using ZoomInfo itself. So why wouldn't you just go scrape ZoomInfo's public page information, get the revenue, and then not have to make an API call? So we get the ZoomInfo revenue, we put it here, and we have a scoring model and a weight for that. Then we wanted to find employees that are software developers at this company and score based on how many software developers they have. Clay has an integration for that. So we just set up the integration as such. We run it. We find how many employees they have, score, weight. Same thing with open jobs. I'm not sure where the open jobs integration is, but we ran one. It found how many open jobs the company has. For example, this one has 7. Same with tech stack. We output their tech stack. Clay has an integration for that. And these all get aggregated into a custom scoring model here. And you can see that we just have this long prompt outlining how you should score. And you can input all the columns from the previous parts of the table into the scoring model, and it'll output a custom score for you. And so I think one of the main questions that's probably going to come about here is like, why on earth would I do this when there are like kind of like out of the box scoring tools like in HubSpot or Salesforce, or maybe ones that you have to set up, but it doesn't require as much setup as a table like this? The answer is it's not nearly as nuanced as you can make these scoring tables. Like, you could find literally any piece of publicly available information on a company and include that. You could get first party data imported into Clay and use that as part of your scoring model. Like, you can pretty much, like, as much as your mind or your creativity allows you to, create probably the most accurate version of a scoring model in Clay that you could versus anywhere else. So that's the high level on this one. Of course, I haven't seen the chat, but I'm sure there's probably some questions.
Yeah, there's a few. There's I see a question about, and I think I saw in a column too. Someone was wondering where the actual data comes from. I know you addressed it earlier. It's kind of a combination of like Zapier and a workflow tool. So it is outside data sources, folks. You can pull data from Apollo, ZoomInfo, anywhere, not anywhere, but most places. But I'll let you elaborate.
Yeah. I think it's also, I clicked on this actions section here in Clay, and you can type in really any data point you want. Like, you can type in revenue, and you'll see that a waterfall for revenue pops up here. And so if you click on it and you go to the full configuration, you'll see that there are 4 data providers that we're pulling revenue from, right? So it's doing this with every data point that you can imagine. So like, instead of buying a Crunchbase plan, I'm sure they have some big enterprise costs, you could just use Crunchbase here as part of the waterfall, and then have actually better coverage than Crunchbase would, because you're using a bunch of different data providers at once.
So said in a different way than you've been saying it, probably the biggest miracle of Clay was they got every B2B go-to-market data provider on one currency.
Yes.
That
Exactly.
was the absolute miracle. And then what's the single best use case of that? It's giving it a list, enriching it with a bajillion things, and then letting AI create hyper-personalized copy related to those bajillion data points that you just enriched contact. And they had a lot of other stuff going to them, but like the absolute miracle is the fact that, I mean, it used to be a huge pain in the ass to go figure out what data providers you needed, go get all the data, go get all of it and like whatever. An interesting thing I want to tell the audience, a piece of data that you will not find in Clay because of basically a flaw in the product itself is person level website visitor identity.
That is true. That is true.
And and by the way, a competitor of ours, Vector, was giving the Clay ecosystem 1,000 free leads per month. They don't have a free plan anymore. I'm launching January 1st a Clay agency 1,000 lead plan for $57 a month. You heard it here first. It's going to be RB2B and Clay, in 2026. And by the way, I want to take this opportunity to do a swag drop because we got a big audience today. You got to be US based, maybe North America based. Patrick, do you have a hoodie yet?
I don't have a hoodie. You haven't sent me a
Dude,
hoodie.
click that link. The code is RB2B. I was wearing it before I got hot and took it off. There's several swag items in there, but I recommend grabbing this hoodie. It's incredible. I'm sure some people in the audience have gotten the hoodie so far. It's amazing. So audience, click that link. I'll drop it again. Code RB2B. Patrick, you got to grab yourself a hoodie, dude.
Dude, absolutely.
The hoodie's killer.
Yeah.
It's winter. It's Christmas. Almost. Yeah, get a hoodie. I'm bummed I didn't bring mine out out here for the holidays. But one other thing on the data thing, Adam. I have seen more than one founder find a ton of success. I don't want to say all of their success, but a vast majority by just being a top recommended data provider in Clay. So if you've tuned into the show before, depending on the guest, and you've heard us talking about, building within an ecosystem as a way to drive inbound. That is one example. So I don't know if anyone's a data provider out there, but just in general, like that can be a killer way by just showing up and being useful on a platform that a lot of people are using.
Totally.
So
yeah, and additionally, like there are some data providers in Clay that you actually couldn't get unless you bought an enterprise plan. Like you can't just spend like $100 on their data. Like HG Insights is a great example of this. They're a tech stack provider. And before, like pretty much only enterprise companies could buy HG Insights data, and now it's being democratized in Clay. So not only is it on one currency, the same currency as every other data provider, but you're also able to access it for less than whatever the $10,000 that was previously required for you to get the data.
Wait, there was a great question in here. Patrick, how do you advise people who are building CRM and data provider stacks from scratch to start? So if someone is just starting out, their Clay table is probably not going to look like this, right? Nor would you probably advise for them to shoot for this on their first draft. What are the key components in here for at least a foundationally workable workflow?
Yeah, I think a lot of the, I'd say fancier use cases in Clay aren't super applicable until you're at the enterprise stage. With that being said, there is a ton of stuff you can do in Clay as an early stage company to get benefits. So the first one is building TAM lists. I think Clay has better TAM list building capabilities than really any other tool. I can even quickly show you like what this looks like in practice. So if you go to like a new table here, you can find really like an insane amount of data from different data sources. So you can scrape directly from LinkedIn using their find people, companies, or jobs integrations. This is using Google Maps to find local businesses. And if you go to all sources, there's a ton of stuff you can do. Like you can build a signal based on like job changes or job posts. You can find companies by the products they use. So if you want to find everyone that uses like Outreach or SalesLoft, you can import them via HG Insights. You can find different ads and find the companies running the ads and like analyze the ads. You can find lookalikes of companies. You can even find people who are engaging with LinkedIn posts using Clay. So there's a ton that can be found. You can see all here, like find profiles followed by an Instagram user, YouTube creators, social media influencers. Like you can build lists from for really like any ICP, or at least most ICPs in Clay. So I would highly recommend using that. I think for anybody starting out, it's great to get an ICP list for cheap. This is a way to do it. Another is just using it for basic scoring, like even just finding like 2 or 3 data points, feeding them into an AI model and saying like, are they a yes or a no? Like, should I reach out to them or should I not reach out to them? I think is good enough. That's what we do internally. Actually, if someone books a call with us, all I really want to know is yes or no. Should I take the call or should I not take the call? And we have a Clay system that does that. So, I would just use those kind of basic functions. And then when you're looking to build a CRM, you'll probably want to build a CRM workflow in Clay, and I'll show that in a second. And also you can use it for outreach, which I'll also show in a second. So you can see some of the other use cases.
Nice. Just to tie in something you had said earlier in the show, because I see some chatter about it in the chat. People are talking about it's easy to blow through credits on Clay. So, well, I'll give my 2 cents on that, but you can elaborate. So don't try to build a giant generalized list, right? That's kind of everything we're talking about. Try to get for a really small segment, maybe people just engaging with certain LinkedIn posts or what, like try to get really small and granular, high intent, high lead score. Don't go too big too fast. Patrick?
Yeah. One other thing I would add there is that if Clay credit cost is a concern, and I'm not saying like a concern as in like, obviously no one wants to spend more money than they need to, but like, let's say you're really trying to throttle credit costs as much as you can, like to the maximum. Every one of these data providers, you can actually use an API key for as well. So let me go into this table again. For example, let's say you use OpenAI a lot in Clay. You can use the Clay managed OpenAI account, which will cost a credit per GPT 4.0 run, or you can connect your own API keys to Clay as well. And you can significantly reduce the credit costs of most of these providers, especially the ones you use frequently. And also, like, for example, integrations like revenue or fundraising are often pretty expensive. Try using Claygen before using the integrations in Clay to find this data. Usually you can find it for a lot cheaper. Like if you want to find funding data, I think in Clay, if you want to run like a waterfall, it's like 4 or 5 credits a row. Or you can just go use Claygen for like 1 to 2 credits a row and get the same data essentially. So there's definitely some ways around credit.
Claygen just like goes and scrapes the internet, just like uses Google search or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I pretty much have it visit like a few key websites like ZoomInfo, Crunchbase, like all the websites that have those like free SEO pages with fundraising data on it, and it'll just find the same data. Yeah.
Somewhat just to clarify for the audience, so people are not using this as their CRM, right? They still use their CRM. Reps are not going through Clay to figure out how to reach out to people. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's correct. And I think that's actually a good segue to this next workflow I'll show you where it integrates directly with your CRM. So as mentioned, Clay is not your CRM. It is essentially like a data backend for your CRM. So it's supposed to like keep it refreshed, up to date, and like essentially like a good platform by which your sales team members can work in it. None of our clients have more than like 2 people in Clay at any given time, and we work with some big companies, like because no one actually wants to like be in the Clay interface. It's very confusing. Like only really GTM engineers want to do it, and so the goal is to get this data and put it in a digestible format for sales team members. And so I already showed this table at Clay's conference, and maybe some people have seen this one already, but it's one I like a lot because I think it's kind of like a wow factor table. And I also just think it shows like the power of Clay when used properly. So you can see here that you can actually import HubSpot records into Clay very easily. And this is constantly streaming. Like, so if somebody booked a call with me right now, or like they would get automatically added to our HubSpot, which would automatically add the company here. And we have a few kind of like key companies in here that we've enriched recently. And the goal of this table was that we're an agency that sells Clay implementation. Clay implementation is a pretty complex thing to scope out and sell to companies. There's a lot of moving pieces, and it's really hard to build a slide deck and build an example Clay table and like enrich the company to find out who they are, all in like a timely manner. We have one sales team member at our agency. Like I want him to have a life, right? So the thought behind this Clay table was, how can we automate like 70 to 80% of the work that he would have done, and then give him more time to sell and work on high leverage things. So we have 5 companies that we imported into Clay. The first thing we did is enrich the company. We wanted to output a few things: where they're based, their LinkedIn URL, a description, their industry, their employee count, and their revenue. This all came from a 1-credit integration in Clay, so super cheap, credit efficient. Highly recommend using it. And all we needed was a domain to run this integration. As you can see, we just had their name and their domain to start with. So we get those data points. And
Wait. You're not sharing, by the way.
oh, what? Am I not?
No, you are. Well,
Wait, why don't I see it?
I don't know. Can ever?
Oh, you know what? Yep, my bad, guys.
Okay, cool. I was like, shoot, it says I'm sharing.
I clicked on this. Yeah, sorry.
What
No,
if you
no worries.
let this whole time? And you were,
Oh my gosh.
oh, we could
Yeah,
hear
cool.
post.
I clicked on something at the top of the thing and like I flipped
Cool,
it
cool.
across Patrick.
We're good.
Yeah.
Okay. Now that we know, I think hopefully people can see it. We'll keep going. So we found their revenue. We used a waterfall to find how much money that they've raised. Something Adam notoriously hates. We found how many sales team members this company has. We just put in a bunch of different like sales-based job title keywords to find out how many sales roles they have. We scraped their 10K for financial data. We then fed all of that data into an ICP score, which, as I've showed before in the scoring table, is pretty easy to do. And you can see that all these companies are pretty highly scored. This is a scale of 0 to 10. All these companies are pretty good fits for our agency. And so we put in all these different pieces of financial and funding and description and industry information to find the score. After that, we wanted to see what tools this company actively uses that integrate with Clay. So for example, like Salesforce, Outreach, and ZoomInfo all integrate with Clay. That's important for us to know because if they use those tools, we can reference that in a sales call and say, hey, you already use these tools. Let's increase usage and adoption of these tools by using Clay. So we output these 3 products. The next thing I wanted to do was a little more like intense and kind of granular, which is I wanted to know a complete high level of how their sales team operates. And that's the power of these really like let's say high tier models. Like we're using GPT-5 attached to an agent to do this. It will give me a full rundown of how much their sales team members are getting paid, how their sales team is structured, all this information. You can see like all the payment information here. They're scraping job listings. They're scraping LinkedIn posts from the people that are talking about their sales team. Like it's a very deep dive on how these sales teams works. It even says here that the sales team members here are actually a GTM engineer. The sales team members are not SDRs or BDRs. They're actually GTM engineers, which is like really insightful data when you're selling to these companies. So we have all this research done on the sales team. And then we wanted to figure out what their revenue model was, just so we have a high level on how they charge. And so now we have all this information that we've aggregated on these prospects. And we can now start kind of doing the cool stuff. So the first thing that I did was I fed this OpenAI column 17 use cases that our agency has built out for customers before. And I said, based on all this information we just found, output 3 very specific use cases that we could build out for this company specifically. So for Brex, you can see it has like a CRM and cleaning enrichment table that they want to build out. Outbound campaign automation and personalization. So all this information is being given to us just directly from OpenAI. And it's actually very well put. Like I would say all these things are things we actually would build for these companies. Then we get the first use case from this bulleted list, and we tell an AI agent, go scrape Clay's docs and tell me how to build this out in Clay. Like give me a step-by-step on how to actually build out one of these use cases in Clay. We write that spec to a Google Doc, and then we have a document that tells a person on our team step-by-step how to build this table out. So when we're building out a POC for a customer, they immediately know what to do, how to build out the table. I don't have to give them any instructions. And then we actually have Clayagent go create a Clay table for us. So we prompted this Clayagent, and I don't know how much I can actually show of this prompt because it'll probably show my password to my Clay account. But we actually have it log into my Clay account using a browser and create a blank Clay table and then name it after the company. So like Brex, Clay, Notion, POC table. So it's actually creating a Clay table that they can just go start building in. And actually the next iteration of this that I'm planning to build, as you can imagine, is that the agent builds me the Clay table. I actually don't even have to have anybody build this for me, which is actually becoming possible now because Clay launched this thing called, oh my gosh, why am I blanking? A navigator that'll allow you to like prompt like text to Clay table. So that is the next iteration of this. Finally, we have a slide deck that we usually present to prospects. Slide decks are super annoying. They take forever to build. They're not fun. No one likes building a slide deck, or at least like doing the tedious like designing and iteration and like color matching on slide decks. It's not really very fun. So what we did is we got all the information from the rest of the table and we fed it into a super expensive 150 credit per row Clay integration that will AI generate us an entire slide deck's text. So you can see here it outputs the entire text of our slide deck from all the information that I fed it in previous integrations. And then we use Gamma to actually create this slide deck. So let's see if this opens up. I haven't popped one of these open in a while, but so you can see here it actually auto generates with Gamma a slide deck for me. This isn't perfect by any means. We're probably gonna have to make edits to the slide deck. The general idea here is that even if it's 75% done, this just saved me a ton of time in writing all of this out and creating slide decks when in reality, all I want to do is make a few iterations and maybe change some of the wording. So we now have these auto-generated slide decks with like all the use cases we talked about. So like the use cases we generated earlier, use case 1, use case 2, use case 3, they're all in the slide deck. And then we of course have like the proof of concept stuff and our pricing and how we work all in the slide deck in an auto-generated way. And then we can update all that information back in our HubSpot. And so you can see here that all we had to start with was a name and a domain. And we ended with a fully generated slide deck and how-to on how to build out one of their use cases and obviously enrich the company completely.
So that's a slide deck custom to that specific prospect?
Correct. So, I mean, I'll open one for Clay here. The Kiln and Clay powering next level GTM, right? And then it talks about how he's been specifically help Clay's sales model. So we have Clay's GTM engineers, which we researched before. We researched our sales team, know that we have GTM engineers, and now we know how they work. And so we can tell them, hey, this is how we're going to improve your life by using Clay. And so it's pretty meta, but yeah, it's the same thing with Notion. I mean, all of these are generating slide decks specifically tailored to these prospects that we can present to them.
That is ridiculous. I've used Gamma a little bit. That's I've never seen it in a Clay table.
Yeah, they just released an API. I think it's in beta, but if you're a pro or like a paid user, you can use it. It's a ton of fun. I mean, you generate like 1 million slide decks at scale. It's kind of nuts.
Did you input like a base deck, or is it just using all like, you know what I mean? Like, do you have like a base template and then it's sort of filling in the blanks? Okay.
Yeah, so you can put your company logo and your name and your company colors in a template, and you can use Gamma to generate based on that template.
That's crazy. And someone said $20 a month. Why is all this stuff $20 a month to do this incredible? Anyway, it's a good world out there, folks. Okay. Are you done with this table?
I am done with this table. Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't mean
it like that. I was just no, this is amazing. I want folks to do a couple of things. Number one, if you have outbound copy, right? If you're doing outbound and you're not getting responses, go ahead and drop the copy into the chat here. Okay. We're going to do some teardowns on that copy because ultimately, correct me if I'm wrong, Patrick, but you could have all of this stuff lined up to a T, all this automation going perfectly, the perfect lead enrichment and filtering and generation. But if you're sending bad messaging to people, no matter the medium, it's probably going to not be all that fruitful for you. So we're going to get into now a little bit of messaging, and we're going to have the panel tear it down, and that'll be a fun thing. So while people are doing that, Patrick, I want to ask you, it's the end of the year. Everyone's always looking forward into the next year to say, how am I going to level up next year? We were having a brief conversation about this stuff before we went live here in the practice session. Are there trends and maybe it's in the world of AI, these models obviously are getting better and better every day. Stuff they used to not be great at, they're now great at. So anyway, I guess what I'm asking, are there trends and sort of tools on the horizon that you're starting to see little hints of being the next, I hate to say the next big thing, but that's the only way to say it. So.
Yeah. So I have a couple thoughts here. I think there's some trends that I think are going to kind of like surface in the next, year or so, as well as tools that I think will probably start surfacing as well. So Adam and I pre-call talked about kind of the tool thing. One thing I think that's really going to start surfacing soon are like AI native sequencing tools. Like right now, there aren't really any sequencing tools built specifically to adhere to really well prompted models to send outbound. And I've never been a big fan of like the AI SDR concept, but I think there eventually will be conversational AI that has enough context to at least perform kind of the menial conversations that have to do with sales. like answering product questions, etc. I don't think anybody wants to do that. They prefer to sell on the phone. So I think those will probably surface pretty soon. In terms of strategies on the outbound end, Clay has this, they kind of have coined this term that I think is pretty pertinent called GTM alpha. And the whole idea is that no strategy works for a super long time. Everything gets played out. And actually, like, nobody should have the same strategy as another company. Like, your strategy is completely unique to you, which is why Clay is so powerful, is you can find this niche data and do something very unique to yourself. I'm not going to show this whole table because I don't want to do another table walkthrough and bore people, but here's an example for Canva. Everyone knows who Canva is. Like, it's a really great graphic design tool. And this table would not work for really anybody other than maybe like Photoshop or something. Like, it's not actually super useful for anybody other than Canva. What it does is it takes a screenshot of their LinkedIn page, and then it determines whether their banner and their LinkedIn banner and their logo are ugly or not. And so we have an AI design eval that tells us exactly how ugly their LinkedIn banner or their logo is. And then we have a checkbox for each one. And then the email subject is based on that. So like if their logo's high quality, but their banner is not high quality, then it's let's spice up Dusk's LinkedIn banner, right? So like you can, and like, again, this is not super helpful for anybody but you, but it's a great strategy probably for Canva, which is like, hey, your stuff is ugly. You can fix it using Canva, go buy Canva, right? So I just think that it's really hard to give like a key strategy. I think everything should be tied down to how relevant is your personalization to what you're offering, and then how good is your actual offer. Like, what are you exchanging for somebody's time? Like, no one's going to get on a call with you just because they think your product's interesting. At least most of the time, it's far more enticing to offer something in exchange. And I know even the RB2B internally does this incredibly well. So highly recommend optimizing your offer and your personalization.
You got that right. Got to offer something. There's just like infinite ways to try things for free. Like the first thing we want to do is try to put something into action before we talk to somebody in some way. So good to be ahead of the curve there. All right, what I'm going to do, I'm going to share my screen here. I see one piece of copy got dropped in already. So I'm going to keep pasting these in there. Patrick, if you want to start doing a little tear down on what you're seeing, that way people can start to see trends in terms of what what they should look at to write new copy.
Okay, sounds good. I will preface this by saying, obviously my takes are subjective here. Maybe these will end up working. I don't know. I haven't run the campaigns and I'm very data driven. So maybe this will work. But and I'm also probably going to be more, in some cases, more judgmental than the average prospect you're reaching out to. But I think that's actually for the better, given that prospects are pretty judgmental. But I'll essentially give you my reaction to like if I got this message myself. So the first one is that like it's referencing company name, just posted multiple product roles. I'd like that there's personalization in the beginning. The one thing I would say is that like the kind of open roles play is used quite a bit. So it depends on who you're reaching out to. Like if you're reaching out to SaaS leaders, it could be pretty tough. Just because like they've probably gotten this email or some variant of this email quite a bit. And I can usually tell, and maybe it's just me because I get a lot of cold emails, but I can usually tell really quickly whether like someone's pitching me on something. Like I could read this first line and immediately just like look away. Like that would probably be my immediate thing. But if you're reaching out to somebody who's in a niche that doesn't get a lot of cold emails, this could work. I mean, it's better than no personalization for sure, which is good. Mace helps companies like False empower all teams, product design, and research to continuously gather and act on user feedback. Intuitive study builder, AI power analysis. So, the only thing I'd say about the middle paragraph of this is that, I think like buzzwords like empower are probably you can probably get rid of. Like empower doesn't actually tell you what you're doing. And when you say continuously gather and act on user feedback, it's like I think it'd be better to just say what the tool does in the first line of the second paragraph instead of like talk about the outcome. I don't know. At least for me, when I get a message, I kind of want to know how the product works, like instead of what it's pitching, because then I can kind of make a judgment call myself as to whether I think it will work. Like, I know you can use RB2B as an example for this, but like if the line in an RB2B message was like, we use person level identification to figure out who visits your website, I'm like, I immediately know what that is, and it's interesting to me. But if it was like, we collect signals to help your sellers, close more deals, it's like, well, I don't even know what your product does. You just told me what the outcome is, which is kind of tough.
I would also say the problem that you're solving, because like the solution doesn't you can't, it's hard to contextualize the solution when you don't know what problem it's solving. That's a huge one for me. And then the second is we are all scanners. The first thing we do is scan before we actually start reading. Like, don't expect people to read every single word. So when I look at this message, I see, "Hi, John. I saw that blank just posted," and then I see a dash, and then I kind of go down to the next paragraph before I read the whole one. Maze tells companies like, "Okay, got that. You're pitching me something, and then you're asking for my time." So like before I've even digested what problem you're solving and that's resonated with me, I already know it's a sales email. And like in general, people are trying to ignore things that look like sales because most of them are not going to be that useful to them. If you were on last week, we talked a lot about this with Sam Queen about SMS messages. It's the same. This is one of those patterns, right? So if you look at it and it seems like you're definitely selling somebody and not trying to help your neighbor out to help him solve a problem or her solve a problem, that's kind of the line. Let's
Yeah.
move on to this.
I want to drop in one thought. I would just try to do I would also, if it were me writing that, I would try to just rewrite the email in 50% of the words.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'd also
This
say
is
the
like-
offer,
it-
like I would probably try to think of a better offer than just like you want to get on a
Yeah.
quick call.
Yeah.
That was the last thing I'd say there, but I would agree. Like, actually, it's just like a high level generalization for outbound advice, just quickly, because I think it will probably like actually follow for a lot of these. To Adam's point, like keep it as short as possible. Nobody, like, especially if you're reaching out to anybody like under the age of like 30 or 35, like no one's reading all that. Like,
Yeah.
like they want to read something really quick and to the point.
And by the way, this goes for all web copy. As short as possible, like really think about, try to do that as short as humanly possible. If you can get rid of a word, get rid of a word. Clear and concise works on the internet.
Yeah,
Here-
actually, one of the biggest like fights I get into with our enterprise clients specifically is I will write really short, kind of to the point copy, and they'll be like, "This is too informal. It like feels too casual." And I understand the point, which is like, "Hey, we want to sound like a professional organization," but at the same time, you kind of have to make that balance strike. Like, if you just are super corporate and using a bunch of buzzwords and it's like a page long, no one's gonna read it, but you don't want to sound like a teenager either. So it's kind of like a weird kind of in between there, which I'd call out. Cool. The other points I was going to say is I would make sure that the offer isn't just, do you want to get on a call, like just across the board. Like if you can find anything better to exchange for them getting on a call, like, in this case, it's saying like our study builder makes it easy to scale research. Be like, give me a bunch of your information and I'll create like a demo for you or something. Like just give like something that will like give them free value. I don't know specifically what it'd be for this product, but something that adds free value would be really important.
I love that. I went ahead and started reading this one. I like this one a bit more. Let's let you digest it, Patrick.
I do. I like the first sentence actually quite a bit. Because it's like it's very clear problem, and it's also a pretty niche problem. Like our agency faces this problem, like we don't have change orders very well. And this product is saying like, hey, do you have this problem? I do have this problem. I would keep reading it. The one thing I don't like is the offer. Like I get the timing and the urgency thing, but if you're a startup, which you can kind of read just like based on the email that you are a startup, it's like not, it's like kind of fake urgency. Like it would actually kind of like ick me from getting the product. I would prefer there's like not a timing element to the offer in many cases, just because I'm like this all seems kind of subject. Like why can't I just get the 25% off later? Like I it just doesn't seem like a real thing. Like I feel like you're bluffing to me. Like I feel like if I hit you up and I ask for 25% off, like 4 days from now, you'd give it to me.
Yeah, also like 25% off what? Like I'm not even bought into the thing yet for price to even be in my mind. Like I just feel like it's almost wasted space. Personally.
Yeah, so I'd maybe go to more of like a value-based offer, which is like I don't know what it specifically would be for this. I'd have to think about it, but like something that says like I built out like an example specifically for your company, or like we'll get on a call and talk. I don't know, like not just get on a call, but like something that presents a value of the product, I think would be a little bit better. Okay, cool. Yeah, that one's actually good. That was like a lot better though. Like especially the first part of it. I really liked it.
Yeah, I agree.
Talk to growth leaders of company. Um
So for me, this one, when we talk to growth leaders at companies like RB, wherever I'm working, that's the sales signal to me. Most teams feel stuck, and then I see customer.io helps teams like Notion, XYZ worth a peek at the like I'm kind of reading the first couple sentences or not even sentences, the first few words of each paragraph just to be like, is this worth reading? And then I'm out if I feel that. Versus like contrast that to this up here, this second message. You're straight into the problem. Do client quick ask turn into unpaid work? As Patrick said, really niche. Like if I'm having that problem, I'm reading this whole thing. And it doesn't look as that's not a heavy ask to read the rest of this, right? It's pretty short.
Yeah, for this one, I'd also say like the third one that we're reading through now, it's definitely too long, I would say. It's also it doesn't really get to even what you guys do until the third paragraph, like or who you are. So it feels like I'm just reading like an involuntary LinkedIn post for the first two paragraphs of it. And I'd prefer that like the earlier one, like the second one we just read, like I would condense all of that from the first two paragraphs to like one sentence to maybe two sentences. I would just like cut to the problem statement and say how you solve the problem statement, and then I would make the offer something better than like worth a peek. And then I think you're probably more in business than you are now.
And by the way, I was about to ask, did Customer IO hit 100 million ARR yet? And it looks like the CEO just put out a blog post saying Customer IO did. So congratulations.
Wow.
Hey, congrats, Customer IO.
Yeah, we're not at 100 millions. Maybe I shouldn't be hating on this outbound.
Yeah, does this work? Actually, could they drop it in?
I mean, I told you the story from before. I mean, where they're blasting emails with no personalization at all. It all could work. It's all, that's what I'm saying. It's so subjective. I don't want to like for sure hate on copy because it could end up just printing for you. I mean, you have to test. Like that's really the name of the game is just testing all of this.
I think that's exactly it, Patrick. Like, and usually too, just to end on kind of this testing, like, I'm not sure what you found. I've always found that like you do not need a mountain of evidence to pile up before you can kind of make a decision as to like maybe not what's like gonna work in the long run, but like what's gonna work versus something else. Like it does not take a while. So just having a ton of tests that you can keep lining up against each other. And making sure they're concise as possible, you'll probably get to a winner pretty quickly, as long as you're really diligent about lining up tests and making quick decisions.
Yeah, honestly, if you're ever talking to like an outbound agency and their strategy is anything other than we're going to test a bunch of different copy and see what works, like you probably shouldn't hire them. Like that is like legitimately the only way to figure out whether outbound copy works. Like if they're like, we have one copy, we know it's going to rip and like we're not even worried about what happens if it doesn't. Like I would not hire them.
I would also say plugging and playing other people's playbooks. You said it a couple times on this show already, where you're like, we're going to create something custom for you. This is going to be something that is yours, unique to you. That's what works. Patrick, where can people find you?
LinkedIn's probably the best place. I think you already threw my link in the chat. So
let's throw it in again.
Cool.
There, spammed it in there.
Guys, I got nothing back on the hoodies. I'm sorry. Come to next year's show, Patrick. I'll make sure you get one.
January 6th. The next show is January 6th. We're taking the next 2 days the next 2 weeks off for the holidays. Thank you everyone for attending. I'll post the link for the YouTube channel in here one more time so you can go ahead and watch the recordings. And we will see you on Tuesday, January 6th.
Let's see.
Guest is I just had it up. Oh my god.
Josh Aronoff. Oh, it's a guy with a huge social following who has the best. This guy has the best repurpose social game I've ever seen in my life. His name's Josh Aronoff. He's like the CFO guy. And he's got like 500,000 LinkedIn followers, 100,000 YouTubes, 50,000 Twitters. And he's just amazing at taking one piece. It starts with a YouTube video, and then he makes like 1,000 pieces of content for every other social media platform and captures emails and like keeps the whole thing going. It is fucking amazing. He made me feel like I was just like playing T-ball.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, let's learn how to play baseball and we'll apply it here.
Yeah.
Folks,
come to that show, guys. It'll be really interesting.
That is Tuesday, January 6th. Thank you, Patrick. Happy holidays, everybody. Have a happy new year. We will see you then in 2026.
Thanks, Patrick. You're the man.
You too, man.
This is awesome.
Bye.